Let's bring in the director of polling at the Institute of Politics at Harvard University, John Della Volpe. He's an MSNBC contributor and the author of the book entitled Fight: How Gen Z is Channeling Their Fear and Passion to Save America. It's out now in paperback. And you have some new polling on younger Americans just overall. They tend to differ a little bit from what we're talking about overall in terms of primary voters and their support. Your take?
Yeah, thanks, Mika. And this is actually the 45th edition of this Harvard Youth Poll. We've been tracking the opinions of young people from the millennial generation through Gen Z today. And essentially, our students really wanted to dig, more than the couple inches that a lot of the public polls do. And we went, I'd say, 10 feet deep into this generation. And what we found was a generation under attack. They feel besieged. And what that means is that we see trust in institutions, specifically the Supreme Court, take a nosedive in the last couple of years. We see that fear, specifically fear of mass shootings and being a victim of gun violence. 50%, near 50% of this generation are under this constant threat of fear, going to the shopping mall, going to class, being out in public, specifically among young women. But at the end of the day, I think this generation is going to be voting their values. It's not about individuals, it's about issues. And that's, I think, what the Reverend was saying earlier about which vision of America is more aligned with the values of young people.
This is fascinating because we're seeing young people show up at polls for races that perhaps in the past they wouldn't have even known were going on. And I want to drill down on some of those results that you got. I mean, look at this. Concerned about being a victim in the near future. Of gun violence, 36%. Of a mass shooting, 35%. Of robbery or theft, 35%. Of sexual assault, 28%. Of a hate crime, 23%. Of police brutality, 17%. And then their opinions about gun laws in the U.S. More strict, 63%. Less strict, 13%, 22% kept the same. What do these numbers say to you?
Mika, by the way, these numbers were collected actually before the horrific events of Nashville. Okay, so these are probably more conservative than we might expect. Yeah, this speaks to, like I said, a generation who's carrying these fears every single day. To prepare for this poll, our students and I conducted a focus group with young Republicans across college campuses and beyond earlier this year, and it was their idea of creating psychological background checks to anyone who could have a permit for a gun. And I think 4 out of 5, 78% of young Americans supported kind of that idea. So this is a generation, again, that is very, very clear in terms of their values, and just the idea of being safe in public places. This is something that I don't think a lot of elected officials in Washington had to deal with when they were this generation's age. And I think we really need to be paying attention and listening to these voices.
So, John, Biden's viewpoints line up with younger voters. Why does he have such a low approval rating? Why is he at 36%?
Yeah, I think, Joe, that there's deep concern about the direction that the country is on. And as I said, when 75% question the American dream, 78% of young people in our survey, Joe, indicated that, unlike their parents' generation, that with a couple of bad breaks, someone in their generation could be homeless one day. There's anxiety around housing. There's anxiety around crime. There's anxiety, of course, around the economy. Those things don't spell well for elected officials, of course. But I think what's important to note, as you noted earlier, this approval rating for the president was just a couple points better in November when Democrats outperformed most expectations. And it was specifically the youth vote that blunted that red wave. The Democrats won the under 40 vote by, I think, 12 percentage points, and were the difference in a lot of those Senate districts. So there's not the correlation that we used to see in the past between the presidential approval rating at this point and election results. Of course, the same thing was the case just a few weeks ago in Wisconsin.
So I want to just point to another poll result that you have that I really think, John, is an entire conversation, but we'll just point to it and I'll have you comment. Felt at least several days in the last 2 weeks nervous, anxious, or on edge, 55%, down, depressed, or hopeless, 47%, little pleasure in doing things, 46%, afraid, 41%, thoughts of self-harm, 24%. John Della Volpe.
Thanks, Mika. We've been having this conversation, sadly, now for years, I'd say. You know, this conversation we started well before COVID. Let me kind of wrap some humanity behind these numbers. You know, there's 55 million Americans between the ages of 18 and 29 years old. So when we talk about half a generation being depressed, a quarter of this generation having thoughts of self-harm. By the way, 5 or 6% every single day. We're dealing with millions of young people. And whichever college campus you're on today, whichever high school campus you're on today, guaranteed that there are young people walking those halls thinking about self-harm every single day of that week, and we can never talk about enough. A lot of people thought that would ease after COVID and lockdowns. Perhaps we've seen maybe a 2 or 3 point shift, but not nearly enough to end this conversation. We need to continue to focus on this, specifically young women, but it cuts across every socioeconomic and demographic group in our survey.
Let me raise this to you. Is part of this where we see the low poll numbers in this generation with the president and the other across the board, their low poll numbers in terms of where they see the American dream. Is part of this that in their generation, they've not seen the progress and the victory that the generation ahead of them did. Like when I was growing up, we never dreamed we'd see a black president. We got one. We never saw we'd see black CEOs. We did get it. They can't see victories to gun violence and the things that have confronted their generation. Do you think that is part of what tempers their view?
I think you're absolutely right. As difficult and as chaotic as it was in the 60s and 70s and 80s, et cetera, members of those generations, baby boomers and Gen Xers like myself, even millennials, saw America come together, put a man on the moon. You know, after the stress of Vietnam, et cetera. This generation, Gen Z, I think is defined by not ever seeing America united or come together. They don't have a memory of 9/11, which also means they don't remember September 12th and 13th in those few days, weeks, and perhaps months where America was united. So they haven't seen that progress, I think, in school shootings, police brutality.
January 6th.
January 6th, it doesn't seem to stop.